Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Underhive Lorekeepers podcast. As always, I am Spamiel, and to my right, my mankini-clad manvent, Nathan.
How you going, guys? Just dealing with the old mankini up the Underhive at the moment, but yeah.
And to my left, joining us again, he stinks like a scrunt, works like a corridor, and if you ask him, Goliath a hung like he is, it's Neddly.
Of course we're hung.
How are we, boys?
Yeah, good. Good. Doing really well at the moment.
Yeah, really good, mate. Just working on some more stuff for, as I mentioned in the previous pod, Necromunda, which is, I don't think we mentioned last time, there is a due date for that. October 4th, I think, is the when it's all going to kick off. So just busily getting the gang together for that. But no paint on them just yet. Just a lot of trying to make them look as chaotic as possible, with keeping the Escher vibe, Escher theme to them as well.
Nice. Well, Cam, what have you been working on, dude? Still your Ironhead squads?
Haven't had a lot of motivation. I did get some bases for them, so I'm looking forward to getting the bases done tomorrow, and then really starting to get into getting some models painted. But yeah, it's just been a draining week this week, unfortunately.
Mate, it happens. Hobby funks get to the best of us, and it sometimes, you got to step away from the hobby. You got to look at it. If you're anything like me, you end up just starting a new gang and coming back to the old one 6 months later. And that's why I have 3 different Orlock gangs.
And that's exactly right. Like I've got, I think, 5 gangs here, maybe 6 gangs here that are all part done. I mean, my Goliath are my only gang that are truly finished enough to play a fully painted gang on the table. So it'll be great to have another gang ready to go. But I mean, I've got bits and pieces everywhere. I've got some stuff undercoated, some
pile
stuff
of shame,
a pile of glory. Thank you very much.
Call it whatever you need to, spin whatever you want to spin about them. It is a pile of shame, and that's okay.
We're a positive
It is a
podcast.
pile of glory.
It's a pile of opportunity.
Pile of opportunity. I stand corrected on that. But if you don't have one of them, are you really a gamer?
If you don't have one of them, have you really ever spent far too much than you should have on hobby for one bit?
True. So true.
Does it actually have to be a pile? Like, because mine's a bit spread throughout the rooms and the shed.
It's multiple piles.
Well, when you disperse it like that, it just makes it a bit more manageable. You're like, that's just a minor heap, and that's a little mound. None of it's actually a pile at the moment, so it's a lot more manageable.
My mound of opportunity.
Jesus, yeah.
Well, hobby in the Spamiel household actually took a little bit of a horrible moment this week. As I joked about, I started the campaign with my son, who I will lovingly call the Goblin Juve. And he came into sort of my hobby room, and he knows that, not to touch the Warhammer or the Necromunda. And we were having a bit of a play around, and he wanted to play with Daddy Toy. And he picked up the Vansar Arachnorig that I had put together. And as you all know, that is Forge World resin. And when I asked him to put it down, he did it in the most logical and straightforward way possible and simply opened his hand. And as my hobby room is my garage, the Arachnorig hit the concrete and is now more of a 3-legged spider rig. I still don't know where one of the legs is. So
it's a converting opportunity for you now. You can do something different.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's one way to look at it.
What a good boy he is. What a legend.
He is. He's lovely. It's great to see him getting involved. It's less great to see him getting destructive. So, I'm considering selling him. Now, what do we have in store for everyone tonight? So we are going to be doing part 2 of the brief 10,000 year history. And for those of you who have listened to our last episode, you'd know we'd gone through up until the beginning of M38. And before we get into that, we did actually have a correction from episode 0. We were mentioning the Necromundan army regiments, and we had pointed out that the Necromunda 8th were known as the Spiders. And I'd incorrectly stated that the Necromunda 9th Regiment were known as the Switchblades, and was completely convinced that I knew what I was talking about. Until just a couple of days ago, I was perusing Instagram and saw a photograph of the original artwork for the Necromunda 9th with the word Deathblades emblazoned along the back of one of the guardsmen's flak jackets. So, as I'm going to be pointing out any other mistakes we make, that was on me.
Well, it's a Necromunda lore podcast, not an Astra Militarum podcast, so you slightly let off the hook there.
This is the positivity we're talking about. I'm just here for good looks, which really doesn't work on an audio platform.
Nor in real life, for that fact.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not something you should rely on.
As always, any questions, complaints, or corrections, please do send them through to us. We do enjoy reading those. Now, we will jump straight into the content here. And we're coming in at the beginning of M38. And the title of this section here is Unity Through Fear. So, in the early stages of M38, the Helmore line consolidated its power and cemented its rule of both Necromunda and the surrounding system. This gives birth to a new feudal system in the sector, with the Palatine cluster at its peak and all other hives becoming dependent on its beneficence and wary of its wrath. Now, as we know, the Palatine cluster is the central cluster or capital city, effectively, of Necromunda, of which Hive Primus is the capital of. And from this point, the Helmore dynasty is ruled since they were truly put into power by the Imperial Fists. Boo.
Boo.
Now, after this, as we know, Lady Cinderack is currently the planetary governor of Necromunda. With power centralized, the ancient Lady Cinderack commissioned the Eye of Selene, a geostationary star fortress in orbit above Hive Primus. Now, this replaced the aging orbital defense network, and the Eye became a gateway between the stars above and Necromunda below. Literally to the point of, she's made this thing so powerful that it is the planetary defense system. And it is really accentuated by the fact that as her last act as the Lady of House Helmore, Cinderack signed an edict that all solar trade must pass through the Eye of Selene. So as long as Helmore holds sway over Necromunda, any void ship or orbital landing craft landing outside of the Palanite cluster will be destroyed. And the vast fields of felled cargo vessels that attempted to reach Gothrel's Needle become known as Helmore's Graveyard, a grim warning to those who choose to go against the will of the Imperial House. That is awesome. Like, literally anyone trying to get to Necromunda, she's created the perfect tax system. If you want to trade on Necromunda, you have to go through my space station. Like, you can't just land. You have to go to the Eye of Selene, and then you're allowed down. Like, it's just true power of the Imperium and the Helmore line as sort of their de facto representatives. They are always going to get their cut. And obviously, the Helmore's Graveyard is mentioned as the Navis Mortis in the article on Apocrypha Necromundus on the Warhammer community page. And there's if you haven't read it, you need to read it. There's literally this ship graveyard it doesn't matter who you are, Astra Militarum, Rogue Trader, Adeptus Terra, unless you follow her rules, you get shot down. And it becomes almost like this city of these warlords who are all in control of different ships and different vessels. They've turned the weapons back on and they're just firing at each other. Like, we'll definitely talk about it a lot more when we do our episode on the Ash Wastes and sort of the major settlements and that within there. But it's so cool.
Yeah, so let me ask a question here. I've got a few points about this. So you've got this incredible amount of power put in the hands of House Helmwa. Now, surely this is all sanctioned then by the Imperial Fists. It's sanctioned entirely by all Imperials. So clearly the Imperials are going to be the ones that will be utilising the Eye of Selene and landing at High Primus and so forth. But anybody else going outside of that faction or outside of that landing zone is getting shot down. So this beggars the question then of who exactly is going outside of that?
It's literally mentioned in a couple of different places, I believe. Rogue traders and bulk transport captains who are either they're sick of waiting to go through the Eye of Selene, or I believe in the article itself, it mentioned that I think it was an Adeptus Mechanicus vessel had tried to breach and had basically just gotten shot down. It's just like, well, it doesn't matter how much power you think you have to follow our rules. And the Adeptus Mechanicus, for example, we know that they see themselves outside of a lot of Imperial law and therefore possibly outside of Necromundan law. So if they believe, who's this upstart planetary governor telling us that we have to wait, they go too far to the left, they're getting shot down, and next thing you know, they're joining the graveyard.
Wow.
So it's anyone who literally goes against her incredibly strict her rules. In fact, I'm having a look at the Apocrypha Necromunda article here, and it mentions there's a fleet monitor, the Pax Terra. There was Ministorium Chartist vessel, the Solar Pilgrim, was also shot down. And those are now two major settlements inside the Helmor's graveyard.
Brilliant. So you actually have like space-borne settlements.
Yeah, that have crashed in the ash wastes inside this ship graveyard.
Oh, right. Sorry, I had a misunderstanding of what the Helmwise graveyard was. I thought it was something in orbit where the ships had been destroyed.
No.
Yeah, right.
No, they get shot down and crash on Necromunda.
Oh, mate, that is brilliant. The scope of possibility to do anything with that lore is amazing. Like, that is fun. That's brilliant. The only next thing that would be more amazing than that is if they actually shot down Imperial Fist ship. Brilliant.
But I think this is also where it sort of leads into it. I mean, we've had inside the hive, we've had the basic 6 houses. We've ventured out and gone into the ash waste. Now we're getting to the point that we've got the Eye of Selene here in the lore that we're looking at in that order. And for the future of the game, there's going to be a lot more opening up about that as we move on. I reckon this could possibly be sort of the next thing after the ash waste campaign is fully wrapped up and we've got everything on planet. Then they're then going to start looking at moving up into Selene, which
that
would be
was actually mentioned 2019, I believe, at the Specialist Games Open Day, I want to say, when they'd actually mentioned the ash waste. There was also talk of Eye of Selene, where, from what I remember, they had mentioned gangs of sort of like menial labor types who actually lived within the Eye of Selene, almost like dock gangs, and the gangs of mutants and that lived inside the Eye of Selene itself. Like, but just imagine you're playing a game and then all of a sudden someone rolls a bad dice and, I don't know, like they turn off the gravity, or you shoot a hole in the side of the hull of this space station and your gang leader gets sucked out. But that is a cool possibility.
Yeah, that's brilliant in terms of rules application within the game. Yeah.
There's some great possibilities there. There's some great opportunity for more lore and more expanse into other surrounding planets as well, and bring some stuff from those planets in and having it play out in the Eye of Selene as well.
Absolutely.
Without expanding away from Necromunda, it just allows them to come to Necromunda. So we're not looking at other planets, but we're looking at what comes from them and what comes to us.
Exactly, man. Now, getting back on to Necromunda, the Iron Dynasty. The rise of the Orlok family takes hold as they aggressively grasp control over ore production for Hive Primus from House Orland. After almost a century of raiding ash convoys and attacking Hive refineries, House Orland's name becomes part of the Necromundan history, as all that was Orland now becomes Orlok, and the Imperial House officially recognizes Clan House Orlok. We all know them. We all love them. These are the generic default option of Necromunda. There's so much more to this story than just that paragraph. We know, and all three of us would love to get into it, but we know we're going to do an Orlok episode, and I'd love to save it all for that.
I will say one thing about the Orlok, though, about just something you mentioned. We all love them. No.
Really?
No, I think and this is why I prefer House Escher and many of the other houses. I just think they're just a touch on the dull side for me. They're just upstart Imperial Guard. But anyway, we'll continue on with the M38 war.
I'm not getting this angry this early into the podcast.
I tend to agree, and I mean, if you actually look at them and then go back and look at N95 and all that sort of stuff, Orlok is that one stable thing that has come across through the editions. That really it hasn't changed. Their weapon options and that have changed, but the gang itself are still just that generic baseline human that was there in N95.
I've now successfully quit this podcast with every episode. Thank you and good night. But no, we'll move away from this before I do get angry. I'm a loyal son of House Van Sar, but Orlok are a close second. We're going to look at the Minerva famine now. We see the extensive and draconian abuse of power from House Helmore. As Minerva's fungus farms fail, it endures a season of ash raiders cutting off land trade and an outbreak of starch weevils. This all contributes to cause the Minerva cluster famine. For years, the hives of the cluster suffer, the Imperial House refusing to lift Cinderack's restrictions of solar travel to bring relief from orbit or stratoplane. Now, this goes back to the Eye of Selene there. Looking at this where, no, everything comes through the Eye of Selene and everything comes through Primus. And you literally have an entire cluster of hives starving, and no one is willing to countermand the rules that were put in by Lady Cinderack so many years ago. And you can just imagine, you got smugglers, you'll have rogue traders and that trying to get the most profit from their loads, trying to get it to Minerva, just getting shot down and adding to that graveyard. I mean, that's the Imperial government, the Imperial government here. They really are just dicks, aren't they?
Well, it shows you that their origins are basically gang leaders. What I'm getting from all of this is that this tremendous abuse of power that House Helmore are able to maintain is just phenomenal, because they act in the most terrible way, but given the most amount of power to behave like that. And the way they behave would bleed down through the rest of the hive. It's like the head of the snake. So
Yes.
you end up, if the top of the chain is behaving poorly, the bottom of the chain is going to be at the same level, if not worse. And it boggles my mind, this history, that they have a single entry into their planet and it is run basically by criminals.
Single legal entry.
Yeah, true. I stand corrected. Yep.
Ending the glory of M38 here, we have the Rothgol Sedition. A creature known as the Cybernac raises a rebel army in the depths of Hive Rothgol. A clicking, spider-like helm on the head of a withered ganger, the Cybernac constantly whispered of an ancient war and kings of iron. When the noble and clanned houses of Rothgol finally put down the rebellion, the Cybernac is cornered and captured and given to Lord Helmore as a gift. The strange mechanical creature seemingly recognizing its ancient adversary. Now, are we all thinking the same thing here? And that's the last free lord of Necromunda himself, Treya Siberia.
Well, I mean, the name sort of gives it away, Cybernac,
Yeah.
Siberia.
Well, cyber ain't exactly uncommon.
It's not uncommon, but the the NA at the end, all you could do is add an I. And there he is, Siberia.
Well, I love to think that this dude who has been there since, M33, so about 5,000 years now. This dude, he went out into the wastes and he fled under this rebellion and has found some dark age of technology or because there was the last free lord being him. Then you had the Great Road War under Siberia, and that was M34. Now the Rothgol sedition in M38, where he's gotten his way out there. Maybe he's found something. It's kept him alive because he's talking about the Kings of Iron, the Lords of Iron themselves. He wanted to return Necromunda or the Arrhenius Prime under their rule. He wanted to move away from the Imperium as a whole, and I just think that's so cool. Where is this dude now? Would Helmor have just killed him? Would he throw him in the deepest, darkest dungeon in the Hive Primus prisons, keeping him alive? Is the helm keeping him alive? Like, this is something I would love to see brought back in this next campaign book, because we know he's loyal to them. And is Lady Credo going to break him out? Maybe. I can only hope so.
So for me, when I hear this part of the lore, what I hear is potentially some sort of ancient artifact that instinctively I go to, all right, it's got to be a Necron piece of tech, or the way I would love to see it unfold is something from the Arrhenius, the original occupiers of the planet, something that's deep and dark, buried deep and dark within the planet itself that he's managed to uncover. And that engineers my brain to think, wouldn't it be great if there was some way to play out historical battles within Necromunda? I think that would just be an awesome element to the game, something that would allow you just to mess around with the actual history, something that you can sort of do in games of 40k and other war games as well.
Well, an interesting little bit of real life factoid there for you. In Latin, the word for spider is Aranea, and it's a spider-like helm, and the Arrhenius Prime, Arrhenius continuity. And there's all this spider symbolism throughout Necromunda, and I think it's a little fact that a lot of people don't realize or a lot of people don't know. But yeah, the fact it's a spider-like clicking helm and he's talking about the Kings of Iron, man, that to me screams Lords of Iron.
But that's the thing, that Kings of Iron could lead you down so many roads. Like we've said, we've got the Men of Iron, we've got Necron, we've now got the Lords of Iron. There are so many possibilities just in those three words of what this could actually mean, and we don't truly know, and I don't think we will know until we start seeing maybe another campaign down the track, which might bring him back, or at least bring the helm back.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's one thing that I love about it. There's so many possibilities. We genuinely will not know where it's going until we're there. Yeah,
and that's cool. I do like that point, Cam, about the potential of just bringing the helm back. The corpse doesn't matter. It's the helm that has the life. You know what I mean? That's what has the history. That's what brings the anti-imperial sentiment. Yeah, brilliant stuff.
But then with that, we're talking about this helm. What is it about this helm? Like, is it something that's been there for thousands and thousands and thousands of years that is from, like you guys said, the original inhabitants of Necromunda, and it's passed through them for thousands of years? We don't know, because we don't have history that goes back that far to be able to get that truth.
I'm calling it now. It's a dark age of technology artifact that led to the Lords of Iron, and I will consider that 100% canon until I'm proved otherwise.
Excellent choice. Just, if it's not there, if it's not written in black and white for me, I'm going to make up my own, and it's confirmed. And that'll be the canon
Yeah.
until GW says otherwise.
Done. You can't prove to me that Kato Sicarius hasn't gone back in time and become the first Lord of Iron.
So the next period of time that we roll into now is M39, and this is a real dreadful part of history for the Necromunda world, considering that how dreadful their history is anyway. And there's a lot of influence from external factors. So it's a period where we talk about the gods and Xenos afflicting and attacking Necromunda. So aliens and heretics attack hive cities, while agents of the Imperium arrive in their thousands to deal with these nefarious adversaries, turning regions of the planet into bloody battlefields. So obviously Necromunda is more afflicted than just the hive wars. It's actually turning into a war zone. As part of this, the Cabal of the Jagged Blade raid Necromunda, striking at the Quandra Spire of the Quinn Spire cluster. Their ships cloaked by shadow fields appear as an Imperial delegation. The Dukari slip past the Eye of Selene and drag hundreds of men and women off into their dark realm, while the other Quinn Spire noble houses divide up the spoils of their fallen brethren. The few Quandra survivors band together and hire a cadre of bounty hunters to find their kidnapped kin, both nobles and gunmen, vanishing into the void. I think this is a good time to look at how Necromunda is afflicted by the outside galaxy as well. So much of what we talk about is focused around what's happening internally within the politics, the upper echelons of the houses, and even on the ground level, the gangs. It's great to see this type of history brought in as well, where we begin to talk about the modern 40k races and how they really influence Necromunda. What's your take on that, Sam?
I'm gonna say it now. The concept of Dark Elder or Drukari on Necromunda, straight up sacking a hive and taking these nobles and these better than everyone else types, literally from that. They just sneak past the Eye of Selene that routinely shoots down Imperial ships, if we've talked about. They just mosey on down, ravage and pillage, and then just kick off. They're like, see ya. Firstly, that is awesome. I am so in love with that, and the fact that these Dark Eldar have done it so brazenly, I think is fantastic. But can we just talk about these survivors getting together with bounty hunters and just being like, we're going to hunt down the Dark Eldar of all people, of all races in 40k. You're hunting the Dark Eldar. You know that at least 50% of these dudes they've wound up in like the gladiatorial pits.
Yeah, they're fodder. They are fodder for some people, but just the absolute cojones on those nobles to go, oh yeah, we got nothing left? Well, guess what? You raided the wrong planet because we're coming for you now.
Because we are Necromundan.
Exactly. It's brilliant stuff. Love it. But we're out of everything I just read there, and I was like, oh yeah, they would just be some absolute hard nuts going after the Dark Elder. Brilliant.
I'm just picturing 39k Ned Kelly.
Did someone say my name?
Yeah.
Seriously, just like ceramite armor with just like an eye slit, and he's got a bolt pistol in each hand. He's just like, let's hunt some pointy ears.
Yeah, come at me, you pointy-eared freak. I'm going to sort you out. Nah, brilliant. So I'll roll into the rest of M39. So part of that period of history, there's a section known as the Shadows in the Skull. And this is quite awesome, I think. A Xenos beast stirs within the ruins of the skull. Hulking shadows seen by travellers, disturbing alien effigies burning in the night, and animalistic bellows compel the Imperial Piss to send a strike team, to deal with the creature. Months later, a single seriously wounded Space Marine is rescued by Ashwaste gangers on the outskirts of the ruin. Before dying, the warrior makes his report to the Spear of Dawn. Its contents are sealed away, and the defences around the skull are strengthened. this fantastic part of the lore that we have here just shows that what we were talking about in the previous episode about orcs on Necromunda, this sort of highlights towards that. So during this period of time as well, in the far north of Necromunda, beyond the man-made mountain range known as the Spoil, which I recently found out what the Spoil is, it's quite disturbing, the plots of the immortal cult bring about the destruction of an entire hive cluster. A ritual to psychically awaken millions of Necromundans backfires when agents of the Inquisition and their gang allies attack the cult's ritual. The psychic shockwave extinguishes the souls of all living things for hundreds of kilometres and purges the name of the cluster, its houses, and inhabitant from human memory. To this day, the existence of the Northern Hive cluster is considered a geographical error on part of the administratum.
Like, that's meant... Like, they literally want to create millions of Necromundan psychers, and then Billy Inquisitor comes in with his mates, and they kill just the right person, and every individual on Necromunda who knew about it just loses part of their memory. And this is obviously all just being told by the administratum perspective, as all of this history would be. It'd all be taken down by some sort of official source. And this is just the one thing that we currently know about from whatever this ritual's caused, where they don't know about the northern hives anymore. How do we know that these northern hives aren't still chock full of cultists and psychers, or they think something's happened to the rest of Necromunda and they've just battened down the hatches? They're sitting there thinking, yeah, we're the only ones left.
That is such a brilliant point. I had not thought about it from that perspective. I was thinking, oh yeah, it's amazing that, you know, my love of psychers in the 40k universe. I'm like, this just shows you how expansive and awesome that part of the lore can be. But to think of that as like everybody else, they psychically forced everybody else to forget about them. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing left up there. That doesn't mean that it's a wasteland. It could be thriving, or it could be, you know, well deep within any sort of hive and still kicking on, but because everybody's forgotten about them or been psychically wiped from them, there's just no interaction, no sort of, well, I guess, history or lore regarding that.
Exactly.
I think it shows to the power of psychers in the planet. Like, they are really, really a lot stronger than what they are on the tabletop. To be able to do that and wipe themselves from the memories of hundreds, if not millions of other people, that's pretty damn strong.
And this is what Andy was talking about on the last episode regarding popping psychers into your gangs and so forth. They make up on the tabletop such a small element, but the impact in the lore is amazing, and it's quite expansive. And I want to see that lore just grown on and delved into a little bit more as well. I think there's so much there that I know it's sort of, you know, space magic fixes a problem or causes a problem, whatever. But there's just so much that you can do with it just to take it outside the realms of plausibility. You just go, well, that was some sort of psychic cataclysm that created that.
Yeah, but and it's just come up as sort of like an offhand comment there, but the concept of this hive, you just imagine the nobles can't talk to anyone. They're saying, hey, we're from here, and people are going, no, you're not. That's not real. Get off the phone. The enforcers clamped down. Everyone sort of pulled themselves into this, we're all that's left. No one else is out there. We don't know what's going on. And you've got this insular concept of we are Necromunda. And what happens when one of those Orlok convoys we talked about before goes too far north and finds this hive and goes, wait, who are you guys? What's that going to bring? Is this whole hive going to be pro rejoining Necromunda? Or are they going to be sitting there going, no, where have you all been the last few thousand years? No, we are not down with joining you. How do we know this hive isn't going to come into it as almost their own gang, as almost their own military force?
They would consider themselves Necromunda. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
that isolated, and I'll reference something here from the Heresy books where they talk about how the Great Crusade goes out and they find planets ruled by the Emperor. It's very similar to this mindset as well. You would have a hive that go, no, we are all that remains of Necromunda. And so henceforth, we are Necromunda. So everything that's going on for the last couple of thousand years, that's all that's been happening on this planet. Whereas they would have no idea about the Eye of Selene. They would have no idea about the rise of the gangs and the rise of the other spiders. It's a fantastic thing, as you're saying, to draw more and more lore from. I will, however, say that I did mention the spoil earlier on.
Yeah.
Now, I do admit to having some ignorance regarding some of this lore, and I found out recently from Spamiel that the spoil is everything that is just dumped out of a hive. So we're talking about a man-made mountain range known as a spoil. So that's just all the detritus and disgusting stuff and garbage from the hives that has gathered so much that it's turned into effectively a mountain range. Am I right in saying that?
That's right. America has Garbage Island and Necromunda has Garbage Mountain.
Wow.
Yeah, so it depends on the source you take it from. All hives have their own version of a spoil, which is sort of, detritus and just junk that's been pushed out there. And going into so much of it, on Necromunda, the mountain range known as the spoil is piles and piles and piles of rubbish and trash and rusting metal and who knows what else. In fact, there are huge Guilder delegations that go out into the spoils just to basically dig through and see what they can find.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane, and I think, in fact, the northern and southern polar hives are well known to have massive spoils that are a little bit more untouched from the very limited stuff we know about them, because as I mentioned in episode 0, it's cold, there's snow, and it's a little bit harder to get out there. And yeah, I just think the concept of mountains of trash it's sick.
It's 40k.
Yeah,
but
it's 40k.
What I picked up from all that is that there's dumpster diving in the 40k universe, from what you're saying.
Yeah, dumpster diving on a scale totally unheard of.
I will say one other thing though. When you mentioned about the other hives getting a call from the hives that we're talking about here behind this spoil, it's basically like a prank call in the 40k universe. They're just like, get out, mate. That's not really you. Come on, you're taking the piss here.
You're from where?
Yeah, come on, buddy. Sure you are. Yeah, I'm from there too, mate. Yeah, absolutely. I'll see you there next week. All right. Moving on to Iron Bones. A world storm ravages Necromunda, unearthing abandoned hives. Oh, getting back to abandoned hives. Unearthing abandoned hives, lost tubeways, and forgotten settlements. Among the secrets revealed are the remains of an ancient Iron Lord's god machine, buried beneath the ash of the Stormlands. Gangers and ash wasters clash with enforcers and malicious scout teams as dozens of groups seek to claim the technological prize. In the end, a Mechanicus salvage fleet from Phaeton removed the wreck, though by then much of its technological wealth has been pillaged. So potentially what we're talking about here is a Titan, I believe.
That's how I read it, yeah.
Yeah, it does sound like a Titan, an Iron Lord's god machine, mate. And let's assume it's a Warlord class. If we're going to go Titans, we might as well go big. Imagine some of the tech that's ripped off that.
Just some of the is it a mind interface unit? The headset. Yeah, man, can you imagine just what they're going to be able to do with that sort of technology?
Yeah, right. Scary, brilliant stuff.
I mean, you have a look at it. You've also got the what is it on Armageddon? The big planet killer. The is it the ogryn gun that they've got there?
Oh, from the Heresy.
Yeah. So I mean, you're talking about Titans, but it could also be one of them, and there's almost even more tech in that to the point we know through a couple of other things that they still have never awoken it. So not fully. So, I mean, if you're talking the amount of technology that's already been pulled out of here and then putting the effort in of a Mechanicus salvage fleet, geez, I'm wondering if it is bigger than a Warlord.
Well, it says it's an Iron Lord's God machine. Now, we see God machine, and given the background we have in 40k and 30k, I think a lot of us automatically think, yeah, this is a Titan, because that's how so many of them talk about them. But that genuinely just could be some giant machine. It could be a food manufactorium. It could be just a giant dock on treads. We don't know. All we know is that those garbage children known as the populace of Necromunda have found this thing and have ripped everything they can out of it before the Mechanicum shows up to ruin their fun.
They just left it up on bricks. Mechanicum's rocked up. They're like, where's its tyres, mate? What's going on?
Why are all the panels damaged?
Yeah. All the bits all the fancy bits, and they've just left the fluffy dice hanging. That's it.
I would have stolen the dice.
Yeah, of course. Oh, yeah, no, of course you would.
I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be hanging because I'm pretty sure they would have stolen the mirror.
Yeah.
But this is just an amazing example of how old Necromunda is, even by this point. It's talking about not only a world storm that unearthed abandoned hives, long-lost tubeways, which is basically just subways connecting all the hives together, and forgotten settlements. Yeah, can we just remember, it's unearthed and abandoned, like multiple abandoned hives. These things are kilometers tall and kilometers deep, and this storm is just like, here's free real estate, kids.
Yeah, have that.
Yeah, and then it's found this god machine as well, and then, you know, the gangers and the ash wasters are literally fighting the enforcers and militia scout teams just to get to it, just to steal stuff. And a lot of this goes back, it can also be linked to the Orlocks. I mean, I don't want to get into it too much, but this is how the Orlocks became wealthy enough to really take over and become a clan house. They found that archaeotech and just didn't tell anyone, just looted and looted and looted. I would love to know what some of these gangers and salvagers were taking out of this god machine. I think, yeah, it'd be some cool stuff.
But what you say there, though, like you're talking about like looting and not telling people, or like not reporting it, or not even making it known that they've looted. The scope you have there just to do your own little nonsense in your own little gang, whether it be just the writing of the law for that gang or the weapons they're equipped with or equipment they're equipped with, it's just phenomenal. You just go have absolutely at it and just say, yep, they're just a bunch of raiders. They get out there, they loot, and they don't tell nobody about it. They keep it all for themselves.
Mm.
And I think that also links back to having the Cabal or Dark Elder, Drukhari, whatever you'd like to call them today. There is it then brings in that Xenos tech that we've got little tidbits of it already in the game, but between this and between that, you've now got technology. You've now potentially gone to the dark age of technology, and you've now got the introduction of more Xenos tech with raiders that aren't telling anyone. Between that, I mean, you're really blown open in terms of choice of how to theme your game, and then how to build and customize your game and make it really stand out on the tabletop.
How did we not even talk about that? Like, they've definitely killed at least one of these Dark Elder. And can you imagine, like, an Escher ganger with, like, a Drukhari needle pistol, or if she's killed a witch where she's got the Drukhari gladiator armor, or, you know, if the Cabal of the Jagged Blade, if they had a homunculus with them, and some of the just insane toys that they have, like...
Oh, mate, does that not just scream at, like, to be used within a Delaque gang? The next part of M39, the pilgrimage to Temenos, An apparition of Saint Valdor appears in the Arius Basilica of Hive Temenos. As word spreads across the world and out into the surrounding subsector, pilgrims flock to Necromunda. House Helmwar grows rich, minting pilgrimage coins, the only currency that allows passage through the Eye of Selene, while dozens of splinter faiths of the Imperial Creed form within the hives, the redemption among them.
Okay, so was anyone else thinking Constantine Valdor is Saint Valdor?
Constantine, that's the custode?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Mac Daddy of the custodes.
Saint Valdor. But then,
I know, there'd be 20 people named Valdor, but yeah, I love to think that, you know, because especially with the corridor and their we is custodes mentality, that one of them's, you know, seen like a picture of Constantine Valdor and is convinced that it's talking to him because the poor bugger hasn't had a meal in 3 weeks, and he's hallucinating that this stained glass window of Constantine Valdor has told him, you know, you've got to get to Temenos, and he literally starts like this religious fervor that brings everyone to Temenos, but in reality, the poor guy just needed a sandwich.
Yeah, true. But I love in this, you get to see how shitful House Helmar can be. They begin minting pilgrimage coins. They're like, well, the only way to go see this is to use our coins. If you don't use them, you'll go into the graveyard.
They're shooting you down.
Yeah. It's just, I love House Helmar, but like, they're just the most unscrupulous house. They're just disgraceful.
They're the best. But also, obviously, Temenos, the latest campaign book, it's really, once again, as Neddly is so fond of pointing out, the modern stuff we're talking about in our everyday conversations, it's been in these rule books and it's been in this lore for so long, we just didn't know what it meant.
Yeah, right. So I kind of found my mute button, and I just found my mute button again. So apparently it's my turn to read. All right, so we're moving into M40 now. We'll start off with the Noble Wars. So there's been a shadow war between the Necromunda nobility, and it threatens the Pax Imperium, while the seeds are sown by an alien invasions and chaos cults start taking root. The Imperial Fists are forced to pacify parts of the world.
Boo.
Though the true wars are still waged by the house clans and their gang armies. So, just with this, I just want to throw in this threatening of the Pax Imperium. This is purely Necromunda. It's not affecting anywhere else. Anyone know anything about the Pax Imperium and how it's affected anywhere else?
Well, the Pax Imperium is basically the agreement between the people themselves and primarily the governor and the Imperium that anything that happens on the planet does not affect their tithe, does not affect Imperial stability. And this shadow war between different factions of nobles is threatening that, because if you remember from our last episode, when they signed the Pax Imperium, all of the noble families agreed that nothing they did would put to risk the tithe. And with these nobles killing each other, and like Nathan pointed out last episode, maybe stopping industry, which stops weapons or stops goods, which stops medicines or whatever they're providing at the time. If that is threatened, the Pax Imperium is threatened, and the Imperial Fists, do their own type of threatening.
Yeah, so I guess we highlighted on this, like every time we do talk about the industry, is that it's almost like the Imperium's like, do what you need to do. Do whatever works for your planet, that's fine, provided at the end of every week we're getting X, Y, and Z in terms of resources, manpower. And so obviously this threatening of the Pax Imperium is something that just begins to make the Imperial forces, the Imperial Fists, open up their eyes a little bit more and just say, okay, what's actually going on here? Is this something we need to step into?
I mean, look, at the end of the day, it might be internal to Necromunda, but far out. It must have been a pretty major step to have the Imperial Fist pacify parts of the world. That's a pretty high step up to react to the wars that are going on.
But that's been their sort of moral compass when it comes to anything on Necromunda. It's, well, hold on, you need to do this. You're not doing it. Well, we're gonna draw a line in the sand. Everyone on this side of the line, sorry, you're either dead or out in the sand.
Yeah, the classic. We don't like you. We're locking the doors. See you later.
Yeah.
So moving on, we've got the Mortis Plague. A wasting disease attacks House Aranthus. Rumoured to be a gene-crafted contagion loosed by Lady Helmwa for some dinner party slight. The members of Aranthus die off across the world. The House Masters gathering in their Hive Mortis stronghold in a last desperate attempt to stop their demise. Despite Medicae rituals, serve only to pass the plague onto their subjects, and Mortis dies with them. This is huge.
It's so cool.
I think the last sentence of that, Mortis dies with the. So it's knock out House Aranthus, but also the entire Mortis hive. See you later. You're done too. This time we didn't kick you out into the sands, but you're not getting out there. You're not getting anywhere further anyway.
But I mean, that's the seventh. That's the seventh house gang that we've got, and it's just completely wiped out.
Possibly seventh house gang. We don't know yet. We hope.
Well, no, because back then, Aranthus was a house gang. We literally read it in the last episode. So they're wiped out completely. That is a massive fingerprint on the future of Necromunda.
But the one line in that apart from the fact that Lady Anna Helmore did that for a dinner party slight, that's next level crazy. We'll come back to that.
Again, reiterates the point that House Helmwa are bonkers.
Yeah, they're straight up monsters.
Yep.
But this line here, like a shiver runs down my spine thinking of this. Desperate Medicae rituals serve only to pass the plague on to their subjects. Like, in my mind, think of dialysis, right? Where they've got their servants, their subjects, and they're lining them up. They're like, I've got this disease. It must be in my blood. So this machine's going to suck out all of my blood, and I'm going to take your blood. And instead of doing that, they've still got the disease, and now the guy whose blood they just swapped with, he's got the disease as well. Like that.
Yeah, but he wouldn't know. He wouldn't know, and he'd take that wasting disease into his people. And that's it.
Yeah.
It's all over Red Rover for the entire hive. Helmwa, bonkers.
The thing is, too, we've also got, we've got confirmation a while ago from Games Workshop that they are going to reintroduce or introduce a seventh house clan back into the game as a playable gang. So, I mean, this is where we could see some really cool twisted stuff in going back to a so-called dead gang and a so-called dead hive and bringing them back to life in some way, shape or form, or we could be going down a completely different avenue again.
I think it's something to do with the grots. There's a grot gang coming for sure.
A grot gang?
I'm joking, obviously.
I'm like, wait, what? Are we talking about the scum
Yeah,
again?
yeah, the scum.
Because I want Necromunda
The
grots.
Necromunda grots would be brilliant.
I want Necromunda orcs.
No, you want the little fellas, mate. Run around
Just
causing
grots.
grief.
Just grots. But something that's mental with this is we know what happened to Aranthus, and obviously with the campaign book, Aranthus is a huge part of it. And there's also this insane bit of lore about a bunch of ogryn retainers under House Aranthus, and they were called the Lords of Aranthus. They're an outlaw ogryn gang, and they were originally bodyguards to one of the last surviving members of House Aranthus. And what happened is this this last daughter of the house ended up getting the virus, and she was in Hive Primus, and she ended up dying. And the last words she says to this bodyguard captain is basically like, defend the house, defend House Aranthus until it's time to go. And she dies before she finishes the sentence. And this regiment of ogryn bodyguards are basically like, whoop, we got to defend the house. And they set up basically this fortress in the Underhive, and these renegades and escaped slaves and all that sort of stuff end up fleeing and joining them, and they become known as the Lords of Aranthus. And all these servants and survivors of the house end up making their way there, and no one seemed to care until the other peasants were going, well, hold on, if they can live free, why can't we? And the government turned around and went, nah, we're not having this. Gangs, enforcers, bounty hunters, slave guilders, they ended up attacking the Lords of Aranthus, and they lose their territory, and this group of ogrins flee and make their way into the Underhive, and it's apparently they're still there. There's still rumors of the Lords of Aranthus being there, and these ogrins with their little micro empire. And just imagine if they turn around and go, well, boom, Aranthus gang, your specialist is just a freaking ogryn bodyguard. Done.
That's really cool.
Yeah. You have this lore background that totally justifies it. And, oh man, it all comes down to, like you said, House Helmore, bonkers. They're doing this, and it leads to stories like that. That is awesome.
I've got an issue with that story. I want to know what she said. We got cut off halfway.
Can you hear me now? Did she press the mute button like you did?
Oh, maybe I should go tell her.
No, sorry, bro. She did.
I love the idea that they call themselves the Lords of House Aranthus. It's just and they literally have they got nothing, but they're just like, nope. Last line that was said to us. That's what we live on. That's
we're defending the house.
That's the entirety of our existence is an unfinished sentence. Classic ogryn.
And that bit of lore about the Lords of Aranthus, I was actually reminded of that in a conversation where the dude who goes by the tag of 3 ogrins in a trench coat, it's a huge trench coat, and me and him had this great little chat about it, and I'm just like, oh man, that is such a cool little, when you're remembered for something and it just hangs out like niggles in the back of your brain. I just had to get it out because it's just such a cool little bit of lore.
It is. It's brilliant, and it's just and we're not talking like a handful of ogrins. We're talking like a full blown mess, a regiment.
It's like a regiment or a company.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was a company of ogryn bodyguards.
Yeah, right.
That's insane.
Moving on, we go to Great Escape. So the Sawtooth Harlots become legends after fighting their way up from the Underhive and stealing an Aquila lander to escape into space, with enforcers, gangers, and guilders all on their tail. For years afterwards, tales circulate of their exploits among the stars, from fighting in Astra Militarum to serving in the crew of a rogue trader vessel, or even as part of an Inquisitor's retinue. Meanwhile, darker stories have them tormented in Helmoir's dungeons or as trophies in his stasis halls. Most likely of all, however, is that they were blown out of the sky trying to pass through the Eye of Selene.
No, they survived. I'm caught. No, official canon, they survived. That is too cool. That is too cool for them to have done.
I'm not going to deny that, but I mean, we've just had a point there of them being trophies in Helmoir's dungeons. Come on, we've seen how psychopathic the House Helmoir is. That seriously, to me, says that that's the actual true outcome.
That's what you believe. I that bit of reading though, it amps them up so much. It's just like, oh yeah, they fought in the Astra Militarum, greatest place to fight. They're part of a retinue, or they're rogue trader, or more than likely they got within a certain distance of the Eye of Selene and just returned into memory. It just drags down such like an awesome bit of history into just like the mundane. It's just like, yeah, it's probably shot out of the sky.
Yeah.
Don't worry about him.
What's the passcode? I don't know the passcode. Shoot that ship down immediately.
Exactly.
I mean, if they did serve in the Astra Militarum, they must have only done 14 and a half hours, not 15. So that's a great little bit of lore.
Maybe there was no life signs on their ship, so they didn't bother shooting at them. So who knows?
They didn't close the door properly and they just all suffocated. Yeah. What do they know about flying an Aquila lander?
Yeah, exactly. Nothing. I love that. In our pre-read, I read about The Great Escape, and I love that. I just think it's absolutely brilliant. Chock full of like choose your own adventure stuff with how you design up your sawtooth harlots or where you incorporate them, whether it be in an Astra Militarum army, whether it be as an Agents of Imperium. How another gang will draw inspiration from what they do.
Yeah. Well, that's such a cool like final mission for a campaign as well.
Bro, yes.
Where, like, you know, you've got your 2 or 3 or 4 top gangs, and you've got this Aquila lander or Valkyrie or whatever at the top of a tower, and everyone's trying to get there. Everyone wants to get out of the Underhive. Everyone wants to get out of that particular hive or get to the Eye of Selene, or, you know, they just want to get out of where they are. And that fight, that desperation, because if you're not in one of those seats, you're done.
Yeah.
And oh man, like that's a game I want to play.
Mate, we have to at some stage design that mission and have that, because like it would just be also like, okay, if one of your gang members goes down, well, sorry, I'm not sticking around to pull you out of here. You're done. Like there's no like safe haven to retreat back to. We are either dying here or getting off this planet with the lander. Oh.
You're my brother from another mother, but you ain't gonna get me off this hive, bro.
See you later.
All right, let's just keep moving forward here before we go on a bit too much of a tangent and I lose where I was, because this is another really important point. So we're going to talk about the heretic. Duke Otto Van Saar, the 21st, risks heresy by resurrecting thinking machines from the depths of Hive Primus. Only the timely intervention of Otto's son, an alliance of Van Saar gangs, prevent the old man from inloading ancient cogitator engrams into the clan STC and giving over control of the house to an inhuman mind. For his crime, Otto and the Archaeotech are buried deep in the hive. So right now, that point there, we're in, what are we, M40? There is an Archaeotech in the hive.
Not just an Archaeotech, but an AI, an abominable intelligence in the hive. It specifically said there that it wasn't destroyed, but I want to back you up for a second there and just defend my house. Firstly, these wild and baseless allegations against the glorious House of Van Saar and our former Duke Otto, the 21st, he died peacefully of old age, and I will not have this slanderous and baseless allegation even make it to broadcast.
It's in black and white and on my script, so it's getting red.
That's exactly what an AI Archaeotech would say.
You're onto me. But this is insane. Like, yeah, we know the Van Saar have an STC that is almost completely functioning. And the concept of putting an abominable intelligence into that and allowing it to think for itself, when you take into account the context of AI and STCs and how technology is viewed, not only on Necromunda, but the Imperium as a whole, that's right up there with spitting on a portrait of the Emperor.
Yep.
That's another aspect of him. You are desecrating the holy technology of the Omnissiah, you know?
And the edict of the Imperium. The edict is we do not have AI. You know what I mean? There was a reason why that got destroyed. There was a reason why we don't venture forth down that pathway. And the dirty old Van Saar are like, maybe we could be better at it. Maybe we could do better than the Emperor.
Allegedly.
And now his skull is the go button.
Okay, maybe it is. Maybe it is. But I believe it is most likely Delaque propaganda, simply put into place to drag down the righteous and loyal name of Van Sar. But please continue on.
Well,
With no more will we talk of this topic.
so Hammer of the Arbates. That's right, Spaniel.
Work
Twice. Helmire accuses the masters of Hive series of failing to meet their part of Necromunda's tithe. As an example to other hives, the Adeptus Arbites enact punishment rights upon the houses of Ceres, imposing rationing penalties and regular shift beatings until morale and production improves. That is brutal.
It's so good.
Classic Imperial methodology. You're not happy? I'm going to beat you till you're happy.
The beatings will continue until morale improves.
So now we have assassins in the Underhive. The murder of Alrian Alanti while she sleeps in her rejuvenate casket sparks a hive-wide hunt for the assassin. House Helmire's enforcers, Imperial agents, and bounty hunters follow the killer's trail into the Underhive, uncovering a family of murderers descended from the Helmire's own bloodline. In an epic confrontation, gangs and enforcers fight shoulder to shoulder against the assassins, destroying their fortress and sending it crashing into the sump below. Again, this is just really cool. The fact that we've got everyone going, we are Necromunda, and we're gonna absolutely kick you out of here.
Right, but the Helmors have cleaned house so many times that this family of murderers descended from Helmor's own bloodline. Who knows when they went down there? This could have been back when Lady Cinderack cleaned house, and remember a bunch of them joined the Guard or the Mechanicus or, joined the Ministorum, and a bunch of them went to the Wastes, and a bunch of them went down into the Underhive. This could be literally the 19th cousin twice removed of the current Lord Helmor.
I think that's the thing. The fact that it's bloodline versus its own bloodline. The people obviously don't know that, which is why they're all ganging up together going, get out of here, we are Necromunda. That's just a massive piece of, I don't know, I guess you could almost call it, what's that, not Romeo and Juliet, what's the other one that everyone dies in?
Game of Thrones?
No,
yeah.
no, it's from the same guy that did Romeo and Juliet.
The same guy? You mean Shakespeare?
William
Shakespeare. It's just that bloke.
Yep,
Yeah.
I knew that. I read that on the
Merchant of Venice.
No,
Henry V.
Henry VIII.
Henry VIII, sorry.
I can't remember.
Henry the Ninth?
Hello,
Is
guys.
Is it about Henry?
I don't know. I'm a painter. I'm not an educated man.
Is it Macbeth?
Macbeth. That's the one.
Yes, of course.
This is a Macbeth moment.
Have you read Macbeth?
I just explained that I'm a painter that is ill-educated. Like,
So how can you reference it that it's a Macbeth moment? Or do you just go, well, I know that a lot of people die in Macbeth, so I'm just going to say it's that.
well, everyone dies in Macbeth.
Listen, it adds up. He's technically correct, but this is insane. Like, when I first read this, in my mind, I would love to say these are the descendants of Gothril, and when Cinderack finally beat him and pushed him back, these children or grandchildren or nephews and nieces or whatever, these were his direct descendants. Yeah. And in my mind, that's why they're trying to throw a stick in the gears for this one here to cause issues, because in their minds they're the rightful heirs to Necromunda, not the descendants of Lady Cinderack, but them, the scions of Gothril. And damn it, I just started a gang called the Scions of Gothril, and they're going to be like a Chaos Venator gang of assassins. God, I hate doing this podcast.
And I will not play you unless his middle name is Macbeth.
The only problem is that they're all in the sump below, so they've got a long way to come up before they're actually involved in any serious fights.
Hey, if the Sawtooth Harlots can do it,
That
so
is-
can the Scions of Gothrel.
Respect to the harlots.
Pour one out for the Harlots.
Here we have one of my personal favourite parts of the lore here. This is a quiet favourite game that I've never played and have always kept close to my chest. And this is the rise of the corpse grinders. So, Hive Akros is overwhelmed by ravenous corpse grinder cults, grown fat on tainted flesh. A cannibal cult dedicated to the chaos god of corn. They give the inhabitants of the hive a choice: feast upon the bounty of the meat lord or become food for his faithful. When enforcer cadres fail to crush the uprising, the Imperial House decrees Hive Akros lost for a generation, triggering an artificial ash storm to bury the entire hive for a century and let its inhabitants starve.
I'll just say something here. Let its inhabitants starve. Where they are corpse grinders, so there is a very good chance they're probably not going to starve because they're going to be each other.
And eventually they're going to run out of their food source.
Well, I don't want to get too dark, but
I want my baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back, ribs.
yeah, exactly. Spot on.
So it will keep itself going. I mean, they will create more generations within the hive. And as the older ones start becoming useless, and yeah, okay, their faith will be there, but at the end of the day, if they're not going to be of any use to the game or the hive or any of that, they'll just become food.
Yeah, exactly. We also need to note here that they trigger an artificial ash storm. What kind of tech, what kind of power are we dealing with? Like,
wooden stuff.
Really big fan.
A really big, just a bloke who's just massively impressed by the Imperial House. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. It's like, that's awesome.
That's brilliant.
Ash storm.
Yeah.
I have my wooden stick and I'm going to press the on button now.
But like, we always think of Necromunda on the gang level of like dealing with pistols and blasters, and maybe a plasma weapon is like the top tier tech and all this other stuff. And then you obviously have the Vansar, dirty Vansar with their archaeotech. But this is showing you that there's a level of technology on the planet that is massive and well outside of what you would say would be Imperial edict.
But I wouldn't say it's a massive bit of tech, because if you actually come back and have a look at the game, we do have something that can enact and change the weather, and that is the Stormcaller with the Stormcaller staff for the Nomads. So that is there, but this is just a much bigger scale.
So you're saying it's a big stick?
It could be a massive.
It's 5 sticks duct taped together. But no, you're absolutely right. And actually, I want to say you're both absolutely right in the fact of we need to remember that Necromunda as a planet and as a system there thrived during the dark age of technology, which came from the golden age of technology, where some of that older lore literally states they cured death. There was no disease. There was no planet they couldn't go to and turn it into a Gaia world with adjustments to the planet ecology and terraforming and anything they wanted. Technology had reached such a point where they could do it. And what's to say that part of that terraforming equipment hadn't been sort of half understood and manipulated and adjusted to allow their Helmors or, the Imperial Guard stationed on Necromunda, or even just the Imperial Fists themselves pressing a button and burying Hive Arcos in enough of the ash waste to let them starve. To literally say, we don't have gas right now. Let's just cover them up. They can't get out that way. The scope of technology is monstrous, and I think we have I say we, I mean by the Imperium. I think the Imperium has forgotten more about technology than they'll ever realize again.
Yeah,
But I
very
mean,
true.
Nathan, you just read about how they were finding hives that were buried, whole
Mm,
hive systems buried. So clearly, this isn't the first time, and that's what leads them to come
yeah,
Yeah.
back
true.
to. You've got the Stormcaller staff there.
Yeah, right.
That's already something that's there. That's nothing technological.
So it's the principle is if we can't kick you out into the ash waste, we bring the ash waste to you.
Pretty much.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's also that horrible little factoid that all the hives are connected via tunnels.
Mm.
So the tubeways and I believe the Ironhead squats actually built the foundations for a lot of these tubeways, and it goes into it in the Book of the Outlands where people are going into them, and there's just squat runes everywhere. So they've been there for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Arcos can still be accessed. You just got to take the right tunnel.
Wow. So you're saying to me there's a tramway like interface across
Yeah.
the whole planet?
I don't think it's so much a tramway. I think it's more just an interlinked connection of tunnels that you can traverse.
Yeah, there's also there's like bunkers, the forbidden cities that are places that are in these tunnels where they're effectively the underground sections of hives or facilities and labs and manufactoriums that a lot of these, they call themselves the Lords of the Forbidden Cities, where that's where they actually process the spook or ghast, and they have these secret sort of populations underneath, and a lot of people on Necromunda don't even think they're real because it's like you got to be careful. You'll get snatched by the Lords of the Forbidden Cities, and next thing you know, you're working in one of their factories. But no, they're real. Like they straight up kidnap or press gang you into service, and you're spending the rest of your very short life processing their drugs.
It's such a glorious, happy little planet, isn't it?
Yeah. I've actually started reading a lot of the Necromunda novels to Goblin Juve to put him to sleep. He hasn't stopped screaming in 3 days.
Just tire him out.
All right, and we're coming into the modern age now, guys. So we're looking at M41. A lot of what we're going over now is modern day, for lack of a better term. We're in the 41st millennium, and pretty much every point here, bar one or two, is going to be talked about in its own episode or talked about heavily in an episode. So a couple of these might seem a little bit shorter than the other points we make, but that's the reason why. And we're starting this one out with a state of decay. So after 10 millennia of imperial rule, rebellion and corruption simmer beneath the surface of Necromunda's hives, and even the iron grasp of Lord Helmore cannot crush all of the Imperium's enemies on his world. And some whisper that perhaps the planet's long and glorious history is finally coming to an end. And House Delaque then takes control of the secrets trade in the Palatine cluster, its agents completing a century-long war against their rivals, and few are even aware of the long, silent war coming to an end, and fewer still that the flow of information between the hives has fallen into the hands of the Delaque masters. Now, this is going to be a big one here, because it is pronounced Delaque, and any other way you say it is wrong, and you need to be beaten with sticks. So I'm assuming one of you two... until morale improves. I'm assuming one of you two is going to say it differently here, and I'm just going to snap.
Okay, well, the correct pronunciation is Delaque.
No. That's where you're wrong. It's Delaque.
Delaque.
The script you
Right.
guys gave me has 2 UEs on the end.
Delaque.
Delaque.
Okay.
Hang on. I just realised I haven't got glasses on. I just made it a bit better, and it's at like 200%. Yeah, it's only got 1 UE. Sorry,
Yeah, so
it's
pronounced
still
Delaque.
Delaque. That's it. Like from this moment forward, it's Delaque because I saw 2 UEs. That's it, done.
Well, it's Delaque, and this is a great example of them being really wary of that Pax Imperium. Few were even aware of the long, silent war coming to an end. So they literally committed a war against another house or houses and the higher ups possibly didn't even know. That's how careful they were with the actions they were taking, because they just wanted to be that careful to tread within imperial rule.
Of course, because they see that they see the ramifications. So House Delaque decided, okay, we need to fight our battle, but we need to fight a battle that doesn't lead to the end of our house, which is House Delaque.
Okay, well, no. And moving away from that, before I either snap or cry, we're looking at something awesome here. And this is Hive Secundus Infested. This is classic Imperium here. In his hubris, the tech priest biologist Hermiatus unleashes the Gene Stealer curse upon Necromunda. Within a year of his failed experiment's release, a Xenos cult has taken over dozens of gangs in the depths of Hive Secundus. Within 2 years, half a dozen houses are showing signs of infiltration. By the time Lord Sire Helmore acts, it is far too late to stop the spread. For his treachery, the Inquisition arrest and publicly execute Sire, while the Necromundan militia, Imperial Fists, and Adeptus Arbite's work police send in forces to crush the Xenos uprising. Years of bitter warfare fail to uproot the Gene Stealer cults, now firmly in control of Secundus, though they are contained within the Hive. Deciding to level the Hive with an orbital bombardment, the Imperial forces pull back. Nuclear fire rains down on Secundus, and the Great Hive breaks, falling down across the plain until its spire rests in the ash like a broken spear. However, despite the bombardment, the infestation remains, as do handfuls of battered survivors. Unwilling to waste more men, the new Lord Helmore orders his armies to raise the dust wall and leaves the populace of Secundus to their fate. Does that not send shivers down your spine?
It does. It shows just how important the Hive was, that everything was activated to go against them. And I'm very much anti Gene Stealer cult, so
I'm sorry.
I just showed
what?
they shouldn't be there. They should not be there. Look,
I'm
just
sorry. There's still a monorail there.
just a little background about myself. I am a dedicated Astra Militarum player. Love them to death. Anything that goes against the Imperium, I'm against. So they shouldn't be there. But also, go on. What were you going to say?
You're wrong. They are amazing. Continue. I'll rant at you in a moment. I want to hear the rest of this point.
This coming from the bloke who's not only an advocate for AI archaeotech, but can't pronounce Delaque. So they shouldn't be there. And the way that the Imperium reacts to them is this to me shows more than just Lord Helmore reacting. This is like, again, what we talk about, the influence on the Pax Imperium. This will ruin what Necromunda is trying to do to maintain their ties to the Imperium. So they just go full-blown destruction of Hive Secundus. But I do have a question, again, showing my ignorance regarding a lot of this lore. The dust wall. What exactly is that? Is that another thing that we're talking about regarding the storms?
No. So the dust wall is actually a literal wall they built around the entirety of Hive Secundus. So after they've orbitally bombarded it, nuked it, I'm assuming some form of catapult, probably done the classic Necromunda idea of just gas it. They built up a wall around the entirety of the hive, not only to stop anyone getting out, but to stop anyone getting in. And it's permanently manned by not only the militias, but also PDF. Like, they have a permanent military section just on the dust wall to make sure that it's secure. That being said, there are tunnels going underneath it, but that's a rant for another day.
But that was exactly my point that I was just about to make. There's tunnels and monorails that go underneath. So, I mean, like, it's all good building a wall, but if you still got a tunnel, you're still going to get through the wall.
So that means the Gene Stealer cults obviously are outside of Secundus as well. Dirty little Gene Stealer cults.
You can generally tell because they got 3 or 4 arms.
True. Very true. Or it could be just an AdMech with his little bloody servo arm hanging out the back.
Are you calling all of our less fortunate Muty and Twist brothers and sisters filthy Gene Stealer cultists? No, they are just poor, unfortunate genetic abnormalities.
I get the feeling like them's fighting words, Nathan.
It's very narrow-minded cat. Just because it's got 3 arms doesn't mean it's a Gene Stealer. If it's got 4, I'll give it to you straight away. You're like, oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I'm killing things with more than 2 arms, all right?
Elitist. But
classic Goliath.
It's just like, going back to Secundus, it's just such an imperial response. Like, it's the second greatest hive. It's the hive Secundus. It was the second in knowledge and power and influence, only to Primus. And I don't want to go into it too much because this is a whole episode just by itself. But they imperial, like, orbital bombardment, nuclear fire. The spire rests in the ash like a broken spear, and then they build a wall around it. It's honestly, it's just such an overreaction because I think, the Inquisition is saying to Helmor, you can't muck around on this. You need to hit hard, hit quick, and if you don't destroy it on an atomic level, you're watching it for the rest of time. And that's what he's done.
See, I see it as the Imperium turning to Helmar and going, this needs to be sorted out. If this doesn't get sorted out, your house loses more and more power.
Oh.
Yeah, I would see the Imperium more as a threat to them, rather than going, hey, this is going to be really bad for you. They'd be like, somehow this has got onto your planet. Okay, that's fine. You probably didn't do it. We'll assume that. But it's there. And if you don't sort it out the Imperial way, then you will be out of any favour with the Imperium and consequently out of rule.
You've got the Imperium going, end this or we'll end you. Then you, knowing a bit about the 40k lore of Gene Stealer cults, that can be generations and generations and generations and generations and keep going before something actually happens. And then there's the threat of the full invasion from the Gene Stealer and cults once they feel that they've got enough of a bed on the planet. So they're sort of under the threat of it's now or later.
So just one last point about this Hive Secundus. So Hive Secundus is a non-active hive?
So
we have to assume that, yes.
Not wanting to go too far into it. So it was the second greatest city on Necromunda. And from what I remember, it was seen as a place of learning, and it was basically, where you look at a lot of stuff about ancient Greece, and Athens was the place of the learned nobility, and it was, in my mind, I see it as the Necromunda version of Athens, where they were just a little bit more refined than anyone else. And after, obviously, the Dust Wall and the bombardment and the nukes and all that sort of stuff, there are still people in there. There are still the Gene Stealer cult in there. There's stories about there are just these nuclear irradiated mutants that are still there. So it's still very active. There's still a lot of stuff going on there. And gangers and explorers and the salvagers routinely go into Secundus to try and get stuff out. Yeah, there's a huge trade in it coming out of like the settlements of like Ashgrad, where it's a former Imperial Guard tank facility that it's literally now a trading settlement for where people definitely aren't trading stuff that they've gone into Secundus and bought back.
Yeah, cool, mate. We've got to do a deep dive on Secundus. It sounds, it actually to me sounds more interesting than
it really
the primary
is.
hive.
And next here we have, in my opinion, one of the most important events of M41 when it comes to Necromunda: the birth of a tyrant. Gerontius Helmore is born to the Imperial House. The reading of the Emperor's Tarot at his naming ritual proves especially portentous, revealing that he will be a ruler greater than any to bear his name before him. His sire, Cale Helmore, invokes the right of succession and makes Gerontius his sole heir among his many children.
And we all know how that's turned out.
Yeah, he's having a nap. One of his daughters is causing a kerfuffle. But Gerontius, the big man himself, we have him. And imagine, like, you know, we're all dads here. One of your kids pops out, someone pulls out a tarot deck and is like, guys, this kid's going to be pretty rad. And if you have any other children, it's just like, well, sorry, Timmy. Sorry, Sally. Little Gerontius, he's getting everything. Yeah, he gets the lot. And
it's the full inheritance.
Gerontius is just the most influential of all of his ancestors until, you know, I'd say going back to even like Martek. I'd say he's probably second in importance, and I get it, Cinderack with the Eye of Selene and all that, but we all know what Gerontius gets up to, and if we don't, we're going to learn after the next couple of episodes.
And I think that's the thing with Gerontius, we know what he gets up to because he's the most written about, he's the most spoken about, he's the one that's there in the current times up until, you know, he goes for his big nap and goes out enough. But he's the whole history of our current era, our current game setting is based around his life. So that's probably what makes him so important.
Yeah. And jumping on that next point there, Nath.
The last patriarch of House Escher, the Corpse Gang, an effort by the gene matrons of House Escher to restore the virility of their menfolk goes horribly awry. The clone patriarch Ubrat the Unborn rises to control over the Escher clan house of Hive Vothroth, dividing those under his command. The matriarch Primus, fearing a fracture within the clan, commissions Delaque assassins to kill Ubrat. However, despite the smoke glass spires of Vothroth being painted red with Escher blood, Ubrat escapes into the wastes.
Yeah.
So this is clearly a male Escher who is obviously become powerful enough to be able to take on the gang that has basically formed him in their little science experiment, and now he's booted off into the waste. So again, the opportunity for your own little.
I love the fact he's a clone.
I wonder what you could
like. Is he the first Ubrat? Is he just a clone of a dude named Ubrat?
Yeah.
Is he a clone and they just named him Ubrat? Like, it's insane. And you can go into this, but if you ran a male Escher gang, would you run them as Escher? Would you run them as Venators? Like,
Well, there's no reason you can't run them as Escher.
Yeah, but in saying that, you could
Because
also run
they-
them as an
you know,
outcast
stat
gang,
line
and that
doesn't
way
have a
you
gender.
can field, say, one Escher character in there, and then the rest of them would all be sort of hive scum. So it balances it out because, I mean, you're not talking a whole gang, you're talking literally in this point, one person
Yeah.
that went into the race.
Yeah.
So if you ran it as outcast, you've got that one Escher
True.
model in the
very
game,
true.
and the rest of it is just you could treat them as
Yeah.
ash waste populace. It doesn't matter what they are then.
Ah.
But I want to go back and talk about the first sentence here because this is huge. So they're trying to restore the virility of their menfolk. So something has gone wrong before the 41st millennium
And
with the male genes in the Escher. They finally start to get it right. It then goes wrong in a completely different way. And then we get to the Escher that we know, love, and we'll talk about in a later episode, where the men really are weak and short-lived.
And as my mankini-clad manvent Nathan knows, being one of the small and wasted and, let's be honest, quite unseemly to look at Escher males, it really does go back to what happened.
Yep.
And this, if you look at the N95 lore from them, Escher males were still somewhat common, and they were known as manvents. They were almost mutants. They had no real strength, no real intelligence. Escher gangs kept them as menial servants. Well, that's the thing. They would occasionally get one that was
And
viable
breeders.
to be a breeding subject, but most of them were these, from my understanding, weak and sterile creatures that were literally just used as furniture or, at best, slaves. So the new law really paints them differently, where there are very rarely Escher males, but they're primarily more spoken of in the House of Blades lore as Ishaki, which was a former house, which we did mention in the last episode.
Not true, we did so. Yeah, so the next part of M41, we have the Stranger's Warning. Envoys of Ibrasail, Eldari, and the League of Nogyr visit Hive Primus with dire warnings. A young Lord Gerontius Helmwar greets the elder and squat ambassadors gracefully within the Stranger's spire and listens to their warnings of an age of darkness about to descend upon the Imperium. Once politeness allows, he bids them farewell, putting a little stock in the stories of gods and demons. Clearly, we're talking about the
Cicatrix
correct me if
maledictum.
I'm wrong here, Sam. The maledictum? Is it the Cicatrix maledictum? Obviously, highlighting towards that, and obviously, Necromunda being part of the 40k universe gets affected and afflicted by the Cicatrix maledictum as well.
And I mean, it also sort of points towards the future of Necromunda. Well, we've seen 2 out of a 3-book series of the Aranthian Succession, which all of this is starting to come to light. So, yeah, definitely, it
I
is
also
all linking
think
up and moving the
that
timeline forward.
They're
And this
talking
is where that
about
seed was planted.
these gods and demons and that sort of thing. It could also just be Gerontius hears their warnings and just has been taught from a very young age, don't put stock in the words of these non-humans, these non-imperials. And they, honestly, I think that certain planetary governors and members of the Imperium could be told that, you know, the sky is up and water is wet. And if it's a squat or an Eldar telling them, they're looking them dead in the eyes and going, I don't think so, Xenos. So is it him not putting stake in what they're saying, or just believing that they're lesser than him, or just telling him lies because that's what he's being told to think?
I agree wholeheartedly with you in that one, is that you've got an imperial world with an imperial governor with a Space Marine chapter on the planet, and emissaries from Eldar and squat races are turning up and telling them things, they're just going to be thinking, look, whatever you say is all great and fantastic for you, but it means nothing to us until the word of the Emperor comes down that we need to react to these so-called gods and demons. We're not going to do anything. We just go, that's fine. You have it your way, and we'll have it our way. So now we move on to War on the Dust Wall. The good old Hive Secundus. The bruised fire of Secundus unleashes its hordes upon the ash wastes. Hybrids and pure strains assault the dust wall, along with legions of industrial war machines. Against the onslaught, the Necromunda militia and Imperial fists hold strong, turning the grey plains red with blood and flame. After days of vicious fighting and thousands killed on both sides, the attack ends. The cult army retreats back into the hive, leaving the Imperial forces to wonder if they are victorious or if it was just merely a means of testing their defences. That is friggin' awesome.
That's why you build a wall.
That's why you build a wall. You could do a campaign on that assault out of the Broodspire. That is absolutely brilliant. So you would have games of Necromunda with Space Marines in it. So defending their little section of a wall.
God.
So you maybe not not a gang. They wouldn't be controlled as a gang, but as your games master or who is running it would have this. Even just a squad of like 2 or 3 would be enough, and you could just see the power level of those Space Marines against like a Gene Stealer gang or something. But that is an awesome part of lore to explore within the game and explore within the confines of the lore as well. It's like, okay, we talked about Secundus earlier, and this just gives it more flesh and more bones to it. And as I said, a very, very interesting part of the lore to go into will be Hive Secundus.
No, that's 100% it. Like the concept of that, and that takes into how would you write the stats for a Space Marine? Everything's just a 10.
A 3+ armor save on 3d6.
I would still fail that. I wouldn't be allowed to roll that. But no, like that's insane. Like they've attacked. There's legions of industrial war machines, hybrids, and pure strains. So by this point, you're sort of going back to the questions you were asking before. Are they still an active hive? I mean,
well,
yeah,
obviously yes. They've got legions of industrial war machines.
They're not active in a way that people are happy about, but technically they've got a different kind of tithe.
I don't think much has been going on there. I mean, like, just a couple of pure strains and hybrids. They didn't make it past the wall. It's just a sleepy hive.
But then what's the Delaque doing? Why don't they know about all this if they're the dealers of secrets?
They don't know anything because they don't exist because it's pronounced Delaque.
Right.
But yeah, like this is what happens. It's and I hate to branch out to 40k here. The Gaunt's Ghost novel Necropolis is an example of this exact tactic where the entire hive is pulled into a single war machine to wage their own type of crusade against the Imperium. And that's what the Gene Stealer cults have done here. Over the last 1,000 or so years, they've bred and they've built and they've prepared and they've trained, and all of a sudden they've unleashed their hordes upon the ash wastes, and they're attacking the wall. And after days of fighting, thousands killed on both sides, it just ends, and the army goes back to the hive. And were they trying to get out, or were they trying to see who was the best point of defense? Or were they attacking in the north while people snuck out of the south?
That's exactly what I was about to say. Or were they just using this as a diversionary attack so that they can sneak their other forces out? Because their principal role would be to spread the Gene Stealer cult. It's not about necessarily a war of dominance or anything along those lines. See, and again, we venture back to 40k. You could do a campaign if you were playing 40k of just this, of Gene Stealer Cult versus Imperial Guard and what are they? Imperial Fists.
Oh.
And yeah, boo, always. And that yeah, that could be a campaign on its own. You know, and you're still fighting this campaign, but it's in the Necromunda in its setting.
Yeah.
And so you do your own Necromunda themed guard. You could even throw gangs in there as like just ad hoc troops that fight alongside.
Infantry squads.
Oh, mate. What a great idea that is. Yeah.
Oh, ridiculous. But yeah, no, that's it. Like there's so much I want to say about this, but I don't want to take away from our Hive Secundus episode. And it's there's just so much. And this is, I say it so many times during this podcast and in general conversation, and I randomly scream it at people in the street. Necromunda's lore is so in-depth, especially for just a single planet. And it's things like this. Just while you're talking, I've started an Imperial Guard army. I've started 3 different gangs. I'm trying to think of how I would write the rules, or an Imperial Fist guy, like as a hired gun in a Necromunda campaign. And I know exactly how I'd model him. And it's all doable. It is literally all doable. And with the ash wastes, you can build a legion of industrial war machines, and you can build a giant wall and have a single door, and you can have aberrants with thunder hammers trying to smash their way through it, and a giant drilling machine trying to drill through the wall. So the pure strain Gene Stealer hybrids or Gene Stealers can get through and make mincemeat of the Imperial Guard behind it. Like, those are all doable with the base rule set that we have before you get creative.
Yeah.
Like,
very much so.
While you've been writing all those gangs and looking for guard armies and such, I've just been looking for second-hand guard models so I can go, hey, cool, I've got a gang of 8 spiders.
Or the 9th, Deathblades.
Yes, Deathblades, yes. So we'll move into Dark Dreams. This is still within the M41 period. Agents of the Immortal Cult subvert hundreds of Delaque spikers in an attempt to take over Hive Acropolis. Visiting the psykers in their dreams, the cult plunders their secrets and compels them to gather up groups of rogue weirds or lost souls destined for black ships. Alerted to the danger by Helmwar's astropaths, agents of the Ordo Hereticus organise psyker hunting parties from local gangs and wage war through the madness that ensues.
This is freaking cool. I'm sorry, but I had to just say that.
Hereticus psyker hunting parties.
Yes. But organised from local gangs. How much? Like that is. It's not even like we're going to send our own agents down there to lead the gangs and anything. There's this organising the gang. They're just going, look, let's find some local gangs. Let's tell them that they've got a mission to go hunt down the bloke who always gets the lotto numbers, and just go after him.
Mine's not even that. Mine's going back a bit. The fact that they're going after weirds that are destined for the black ships. I mean, these are people that are either being held by local Arbites, because I believe it's the Arbites that are in charge of the black ships and in charge of the tithe for psykers and weirds in the 41st millennium. They could be in a holding cell or in a holding area waiting to go, and all of a sudden they're taking them out of there. They're taking them from the escorts that are going to the black ships. It's in that point where they've been found to be a weird and where they're on the black ship. Now, that's a highly militarized area, and the Delaque are getting in there and getting them.
Yeah, but you got to remember, like, they are the absolute bee's knees of intelligence and, being little sneaky buggers to get through and, get their way in. They're bribing, they're blackmailing, they're doing what they can to get in there, or these spikers are just going in there, and the local Arbites or work police are saying, "Listen, you can't come in here. That's cool. I'm going to melt your brain." And those, brothers and sisters of the psyker type are coming with me, and then they're joining these little cults and these little sort of enclaves of psychers that these spikers are actually creating. That's insane. And then you have Ordos Hereticus coming down, slapping local gangs together and being like, "Yeah, buddy, you know that guy that was, just he spoke a little bit weirdly. It was a little bit of a nut job, so you all told him to get out of town. Do you guys want to get together and explode his face?" Yes, you do. And can you imagine, Orlox would be down with it, Goliath would be down with it, but can you imagine Escher getting in there and, that it's no longer a war crime to use these interesting weapons against these psychers.
Through that, yeah, you've got an inquisitorial edict that says just go ham, like absolutely go for it. As long as you're killing these psychers, that's all that matters to us.
Yeah, killing them, incapacitating them. Are they catching them? Are they rounding them up? Are the Ordos Hereticus organizing for them to get on the black ship still, or is it? Well, that guy's a little bit more powerful than we realized. We don't want to run the risk of him getting anyone on the way back to where he needs to go. Nah, get him.
Yeah, he's on the kill list.
Yeah, it's just awesome. But that's the immortal cult. They're back again.
Yeah.
We've all forgotten about the Northern Hives, and now they're making the spikers come in and do their thing. Like, it's great. It's absolutely great.
Everything I've learnt about the immortal cult, they are very, very interesting. A great part of the lore, but just as I said to you earlier in the pod about, space magic, it always adds that extra element of grandiose or that extra element of danger, just because it's something outside of the normal realm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, well, I'll take over here, boys, and I'll cover the fall of Nautilus. A gene stealer infestation is uncovered in the Nautilus spire of Hive Acropolis. This time, aware of the failures of his predecessors, Lord Helmire turns swiftly to a visiting delegation of Ultramarines for aid. The Space Marines accept the honour of destroying the nest and cleanse Nautilus in a series of bloody battles to ensure the spire is sterilised. The Battle Brothers release nerve toxin into the main air shafts before sealing the spire off.
Awesome. Close the doors.
Awesome. Close. Just a standard procedure. Thanks, lads.
I think that's just normal 40k procedure, but the fact that it's actually not the Imperial Fist doing it for once, I just like the fact that it's Ultramarines there. It's kind of cool that it's someone different for once on the planet.
Well, I like the fact that the Lord of Necromunda decides, I'm not going to use the Imperial Fist because they haven't been able to do anything with Secundus, and these Ultramarines, amazingly, are more interesting and cooler than the Fist. I'll use them.
Look at their fancy blue armor.
Yeah, how nice is that? Much better than that yellow stain we have.
I'm glad you guys think it's fun. It ain't fun to paint. So, Forge of Flesh, the fortunes of House Goliath in Rothgold saw as they lay claim to the Hive's great Gale Forges. Soon the hardest metals in Necromunda are pouring out of the forges, forcing the other houses of Rothgold to ally against the Goliaths as their own influence dwindles. Repeated attempts to take the Gale Forges fail, the Goliaths creating a forest of charred corpses around their domain, as they should.
No one wants to visit them anyway.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh yeah, the steroid boys are here. Cool. Thanks.
Did someone say meat necks and body odor?
This just shows the strength of House Goliath compared
Does
to
it
everyone
really?
else.
The old forge with the rave music pumping, bunch of shirtless guys. Oh yeah, we're just working on hard metal. That's all.
And make it harder.
Clearly,
I didn't want to go there. This is a G-rated podcast, but you went there.
I'm just saying that
You
what
made me
they
go
do
there.
what they do in their own forges, they can keep in their own forges, mate.
So
It's mainly bench press. they never do leg day.
No.
We've all seen their models. They skip leg day every time.
Helmjar's own. Lord Helmar banishes one of his true-born sons from the spire after realizing the boy's likeness to the house's ancient progenitor, Helmjar, and fearing that the blood of the usurper might flow in his veins. The child makes his way down into the Underhive of Hive Primus, where he's welcomed by a discarded line of his family and the Dark Masters they now follow.
Ooh, buddy.
That sounds awesome, doesn't it?
Now, is this family and the Dark Masters, are they that same offshoot? What did I call them? The Scions of Gothril. Do you reckon that's them? Do you reckon some of them have survived?
Sure. It's obviously the link to the family of Helmoir, right? But there's just that little flavor of chaos sprinkled all over them with the Dark Masters. I'm assuming that's what the Dark Masters references. But I would say it would be the from the limited information we have, it's the descendants of Gothril. But
I'm glad we've accepted my interpretation as canon.
I like it.
I'm sorry, hang
on.
I agree with Nathan here. The fact that it's Dark Masters to me says that there's some sort of chaos taint there. So
the Helmoir bloodline with a chaos influence muddled up into it now.
Well, is it the Helmoir? Because they're saying that they feel he's a bit of a throwback to the Helmjar.
Yeah, so by the sounds of it, it's Gerontius's true-born son, and he resembles Martek Helmea so much that he's just like, nope, don't trust this kid. Get rid of him. Like, this is another thing, like, moving into the sort of the modern day, as we are with where we're reading it from, and where we're coming to now. Is this stuff coming back in these campaign books? Are we going to see little Timmy Helmore there, who's been kicked down, to hang out with the Scions of Gothril? What if they come back and sort of and what if they've aligned with House Aranthis? And they're saying no. What if those Dark Masters are the Lords of Iron?
Oh, bro.
This is the conclusion where we're going to actually see, what is it, Lady Credo, and she goes down to get the discarded line of the Helmjar family.
And the Cyberack. I want to see that.
I also want official canon for the young boy's name to be Timmy Helmar.
Yeah. GW, if you ever listen to this, if his name is anything but little Timmy Helmore, poor Timmy, he's 6'2".
Guys, we are a lore podcast. We are the canon. That's it.
That's true.
Name is Timmy.
That's true.
Games Workshop, if you're listening to this, he's Timmy. You cannot change it.
Yes.
We've written this lore for you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
We've also added to the lore that Goliath are the best. You're welcome.
And I'll edit that part.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just nonsense. I think he's been drinking.
So moving on, we've got one final point, and I think this is really going to be a good one to round everything out. The shadows over Primus. Unrest in the Imperium casts a shadow over Necromunda. The fires of rebellion swelling in the ash waste and Xenos raiders circling in the void. Meanwhile, the unimaginable Hatred of the ruinous powers waxes strong in a hidden cabals and covens across the planet. The worship of chaos spreads. Now, this part is really cool. It links back. We've got Xenos Raiders circling in the void. They've got to come through the Eye of Selene or they're going to get destroyed. But if they decide to venture through the Eye of Selene in a campaign series, this is where we could see more Xenos races coming in. And you guys are throwing out there Drukhari, but there are so many. There's over 100 different Xenos races in the universe as we stand. So we could see some totally new stuff. We could see some really popular stuff that's not big enough to make the 40k tabletop come to Necromunda, and that would be a massive explosion for Necromunda.
Yeah, it would be. And what I love about what you just read then, it is really just doubling down on everything we've talked about in this episode about the external factors affecting Necromunda, the internal factors affecting Necromunda, and then most importantly, really definitively stating that there's known chaos worship on Necromunda. That is, to me, is the most dangerous thing for the whole planet.
Well, that's the thing. We know there's chaos. We know there's worship of it. And we know what happens straight after Shadows over Primus. The Cicatrix Maledictum, Cadia, and we got to remember the planet literally did break before the guard did. Sorry, it's a Necromunda podcast, not a 40k podcast, but I got to say that.
Respect the Astra Militarum.
Hoorah.
Hoorah.
Now, we know what happens here, and we know where this steps into the current campaign books. Just, the insanity that ensues after that. I mean, look at Some City. Some City was attacked by corpse grinder cults and scavies and mutants and chaos helot cults and spawn and everything. They sank the damn city again. Then you've got, mass murders. You've got the Ashwaste nomads attacking cities, attacking hive cities.
Yeah, true.
Everything goes insane right after this. And it's leading towards something.
Something major, doesn't it? It feels like It feels like the Cicatrix Maledictum has led to the next phase, but then this next phase is really leading to a major reveal or a major thing that's going to happen within the lore that obviously bleeds down onto the tabletop as well.
And I think the other thing is that there is mention of demons in the lore for the latest two books there. So, I mean, chaos is starting to spread here. We've now seen that moving forward in the lore again in future books from this point. So, I mean, could we see some more chaos representation on the tabletop? Could that be possibly the 7th house game that they've revealed that will be coming at some point soon?
If it's going to be a house game, it's got to be Aranthus.
Yeah.
I would, don't get me wrong, I would love for Specialist Games to turn around and give us an update for Helot cults and Enforcers and even the squats and Ashwaste nomads, just giving them some options, some updated rules, some specialists, that sort of thing. It'd be phenomenal. But that is all conversation for other episodes. So I have a question for both of you. And you already know my answer, but I'm still going to repeat it.
Pronounced Delaque.
No, it's pronounced work police. From these last two episodes, from all the lore we've gone over, from everything we've discussed, and all those weird little ideas that keep popping into everyone's heads, give me a gang that you have come up with from just one of these throwaway pieces of lore. Like, take a second, think about it. What's your gang? What's your gang that's come from one of these points? And what's their background? Mine's easy. Mine are the scions of Gothril, being the great grandchildren of Gothril and their retainers, and they would be this, this not necessarily chaos cult, but chaos adjacent cult, and very, very assassin heavy, very either long range, I'm talking long last needle rifle type attack, or up close and personal. I'm talking, blades and boards right up there with you and really play them that way. It'd be so cool to have them literally as these almost vampire type nobles in rotting finery, surrounded by what's left of these retainers, these dregs that have just been bred for service after generation, and literally have them coming in as the chaff, and then these powerhouse nobles coming in with the weapons and the armor. And yeah, it's just, as soon as we started talking about it earlier, I was just like, no, this is a gang that I need to make, and I'm going to make them. Scions of Gothril by it's the 15th of July. I will have them by the end of the year, probably after Necromunda.
We'll hold you to that. But
hold me to that.
love the visual that you came up with there of like this elite cadre, vampire styled cadre at the top of the chain, and then just their underlings, and just this clear disparity between the two of them, and all justified by the law. It's just fantastic.
Like Games Workshop have literally said, here's this gang idea, here's this army concept of the degenerate noble, great grandchildren of a defeated and deposed member of the ruling dynasty. Oh, just I've outdone myself.
You have. Yeah. Kings to you, sir. Kings to you. Great effort. So for myself, the one thing that I picked out, and it's actually come from this pod, is the dumpster divers on the scrap heaps, and the idea that the AdMech would send somebody down there, and so you have this gang that is effectively led by like a members from an explorator fleet, so one or two AdMech members who say, let's just pick Vansar for use of a better gang. They're going out, they're dumpster diving in this phone, and they find something like the helm that was used on Cinderack, and that influences the AdMech member to turn on the other AdMech members and be like, no, I've got it's something bleeding into his brain, wanting him to talk about the greatness of Irenaeus Prime. So it's an Irenaeus, like a memory hub, or for use of a better term, like a spirit stone from the Elder. But it's bleeding into his brain saying, we need to get to the top of Hive Primus, we need to destroy all this. And so it's trying to regain the days of old Irenaeus Prime, and leading a small cluster of, as I say, dumpster divers. And so the tech is really awesome, but the objective and the viewpoint of the gang is to destroy everything on its pathway to actually trying to get to the top of the pinnacle. But I have another gang idea as well, but that's my primary that I pulled out of this one.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Just a gang that venerates and absolutely lords over, like, picture posters on the bedroom wall sort of thing of, I've lost their name, the harlots. The
sawtooth harlots.
Sawtooth, that's it. It's the sawtooth harlots. And so they do everything about that. And so their objective is to ascend as high as they can within the hive, and it's just this ruthless gang that is like their whole objective is not to build a fortress for themselves necessarily, but just to constantly raise up in the hive, constantly raise up, and they'd be shut down by absolutely everybody. So they're like they're the complete underdogs all the time. But what motivates and drives them forward is this idea that we'll be like it'll be like 2 years from now, I'll be serving the Inquisitor's retinue on some distant planet because I'm going to be the next one on the Aquila lander. I'm going to be the next one getting out of here. So they're not going for any particular fame or prize or anything like that. They're going off the memory of what the Sawtooth Harlots have done, and they're trying to venerate that. They're trying to encapsulate that. They're trying to be them. That to me is just like something like absolutely brilliant.
So I know they survived because my cousins, next door
There
neighbors,
you go.
Gang, the rogue doc that sewed his thumb back on after that like monkey knife fight told him that he heard from a bloke he worked with he had seen a document that mentioned that they'd actually gotten off and they lived on their own planet now. They'd served this Inquisitor, and it's just like, some idiot kid's going to hear that and be like,
that's me.
I can do that.
Yeah, that's my future. It has to be. Yeah. But anyway, I could go on about all different types of gang types. But yeah, well, Cam, what's your super cool non-Goliath gang?
I'm going to do this in the most serious voice I can because you all like to call me the beady gamer. So what I'm going to...
It's a Goliath gang.
No, it's better than a Goliath gang.
Oh, hang on.
Oh, so Van Sar.
It's going...
Oh, wait, no, better than a Goliath gang. It's actual dirt.
Yeah, better than actual dirt, better than Van Sar. Well, that's not hard to be better than Van Sar.
You're never coming back.
Seeing as I'm the big beardy gamer, I'm going for the single Space Marine at 1,000 credits with a 3+ armor save on 3d6.
Man, we did say that before.
We did. Yeah, we did.
But in reality, I'd probably go Aranthus. But I've mentioned it a few times already. I think there's 2 ways you could go about it. We've got vampires in fantasy and Age of Sigmar. We've got space vampires in 40k. We don't have vampires in Necromunda.
We used to.
But let's bring it back. Let's
what was it? Beufy the Vampire Slayer?
Let's go for House Aranthus as a vampire theme. The other way you could go about it is a Scabby or Muty themed game, but then run them... Either way, you're going to run them as an outcast game. And try and chuck in a couple of those slave ogryns, like we said before. As
Lords of Aranthus.
Yeah, give them that Lords of Aranthus thing, but then, make it like Aranthus is coming back, but it's a dead hive, it's a dead house. So you're not going to be using living models, which is where Scabbies and Muties and things like that are going to really fit that theme really well to bring them back.
That's an awesome idea.
Yeah. So you're really feeding into the dead aspect of
it. Yeah. So either way, you've got the living death in the vampire, or you've got the death and decay of muties and scabbies, whatever you want to use. There's a whole range for Plague Marines where you could take all the what are they? The humans that are in Death Guard.
Poxwalkers.
Yeah, Poxwalkers. You've literally got an absolute swath there of stuff that you could grab.
And you forsake your shooting weapons. You just go, yeah, cool. These guys have just got blades and stuff, and you run them forward like that, purely working to the theme. It might not be the best for you, but who cares? You're running a gang based on the lore.
Yeah, man, that is sick.
That's cool. That's freaking awesome.
I'll do the Scions of Gothril. You're gonna do your zombie Aranthus, and I hate to say it, I really want to see the Adeptus Mechanicus spoilers, like with your guy Taken, who's been taken control of by some dark age of technology. How did you describe it? The like the brain implant.
Yeah, like a brain implant, but I see it from like Irenaeus Prime, so it's actually bit of tech from them
Yeah.
that's saying the Imperials, like we lost the war to the Imperials, but that's only it. Like we can still recover our planet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love the idea that it's, as I say, akin to sort of like a spirit stone. It's trying to relive its old history, and it's got one little AdMech soldier who it's trying to manipulate to do that task.
Almost like a what are they called? The mnemonic inload spikes.
Yes,
Yes, for learning skills and that sort of thing. Where it could be a former member of the Arrhenius continuity whose personality is on that spike, and he's picked it up and he's like, oh, what's this? And it just boom uploads that data and just the corruption, the duality of the character, and then all of a sudden it's just I'm no longer DTS 716. I'm now Billy Godfrey. I keep saying Billy and Timmy. Like, hold on. I'm now. What were we talking about before?
What about Andy Arrhenius?
I'm Andy Arrhenius. BTS.
BTS.
And he's the merging of the two personalities, and like just that's insane. That's sick. Yeah, do that. I will.
The
buy
plan
the
is
AdMech.
by the end of the year. Yes. Okay. Done. That's settled it then.
And as we said last episode, we want to throw in one of the fantastic quotes from all of the Necromunda literature. And this episode's quote comes to us from the House of Blades. What's the point of life if you can't have a bit of fun? And we're the best party around. And that's from Yelena, House Escher Gang Queen, discussing House Escher. Guys, thank you very much for tonight. As always, I am Spamiel. To my right, Nathan the Manvent.
Yeah, thanks again, Sam. Awesome episode. Loving what we're doing.
Excellent. And to my left, everyone's favourite or unfavourite Goliath, Neddly.
See you later. But I'm always the favourite.
He's never coming back.
No, I don't think so.
Have a lovely night, everyone. Bye for now. And that was episode 2 of the Underhive Lorekeepers podcast. Please tune in to our next episode, Girls Just Wanna Have Fun, where we take a look at the deadliest ladies on all of Necromunda, House Escher. I am Spamiel, and on behalf of the Lorekeeper team, thank you for listening. As always, if you have questions, complaints, corrections, or just want to talk about how awesome a regiment of ogryn bodyguards would be, please reach out to us at underhivelorekeepers@gmail.com. Thanks.